Bismillah. You know, we know about Trump and has left whatever, has left, just met with the military, the generals, some of the exchanges. It's, you know, during the 1850s, before the Civil War, there was a lot of divisions, irreconcilable differences in this country that led to the Civil War. And back then, the main issue was slavery. You know, the new territories coming into the Union, to the west, places like Kansas. The question was whether they be slave states or free states. And they were fighting. They called Kansas Bloody Kansas, and that's where John Brown first got notoriety. He was going to war out there, fighting against the slavers and pro-slavery people. But you know, today the irreconcilable differences are real, and maybe even more intense than it was back then. And that's why some people forecast the possibility, a real possibility of civil war in this country.
How so?
You know, because the differences are not reconcilable. They're not something people can sit down and say, okay, we you know, compromise. The so-called Christian right, they're not going to compromise about things like transgender. That's uncompromisable. So, and they have a thing about different America and other countries is there's probably more guns in America than there are people. You know, and that's a reality. And the question is, who has the guns? You know, the right-wing folks, they have the gun. The so-called liberal left-wing folks, they live in the cities where they have the toughest gun laws. You know, so we don't have access to guns. If you're a New Yorker, you don't have access to guns legally, like you would in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. Now, one of the northern states that have the laxest gun laws is a state like Vermont. It's very open, you know, socialist state, sort of. But yeah, this country is teetering, you know, and it's teetering on the brink. And what Trump, one of the things that I said about the 1850s and what happened in 1860 was the election of Abraham Lincoln. Now, whatever you think about Abraham Lincoln, he wasn't an elitist. I would say that he was born poor. You know, he rose up. You know, he rose up, became. You know, he's always very intelligent, but he was a man of integrity. That's I studied and read about him. He had some integrity. And when South Carolina attacked Fort Sumter in 1861, January 1861, he had a lot of pressure to, you know, people, northern politicians saying, listen, just give them a chance to relax, you know, they'll come back to the Union. And his position was no, either they put down their arms or we're gonna wage war against them. And he took that position. Now, did he wage war to end slavery? No, that wasn't his position. He really felt that in order to preserve the Union, he would have to end slavery because he knew the idea of slavery was too divisive. So he made up his mind that as president, his main objective was to preserve the Union. And in order to do that, he'd have to end slavery. And he was willing to fight to the death. You know, when he told his general Sherman and Ulysses, you know, slash and burn, when Sherman marched through Atlanta, burned everything. He said, hold no quarters, you know, and that's what Sherman did. And Ulysses S. Grant, they made them put down their arms and come back into the Union forcibly. So we need somebody that has integrity. We need a Lincoln, but we got a Trump. Okay? Trump is trying to do the opposite. Trump, instead of preserving the Union, Trump is trying to start a civil war. Okay? He ain't trying to he's trying to bring this country down. He's willing to start and incite his base You know, between him and that devil Stephen Miller, he's a devil. Stephen Miller makes Trump look like a schoolboy. He's very dangerous. And if you haven't heard his speech he made at Charles Kirk Memorial, you need to listen to it. Okay, he's definitely calling for war in this country. He said stuff, you waking up the dragon. You know, what dragon? Is that a reference to the Ku Klux Klan? You know, the Grand Dragon, you know. You are nothing, you have nothing, you will be nothing. You know, this guy is really a diabolical character. And he's right there in the background. You know, he's been there. He was with Trump in the first 4 years, and he's back there with him now. But he's the little devil in Trump's ear, whispering. You know, like that's all Trump needs.
Your opinion on Hexac?
Listen, the whole government, he's putting these in. This guy, Cash Patel, in charge of the FBI.
Patel.
Yeah, in charge of the FBI. These guys, they don't have the expertise or qualifications. You know, that's, you know, usually somebody in charge of the military would have some military experience. Even Trump, you know, he's the commander-in-chief. But when he's standing in front of them generals, and everybody knows his father paid a podiatrist to say he had heel spurs to keep him out of Vietnam. And so that's how he got out of that. So here you are standing in front of a bunch of warriors, berating them, you know, and everybody know your history. They know his history, you know, how he invaded combat. Now he's the commander-in-chief. I call him commander-in-chief heel spurs, you know. But when you try, the government of America is a very complicated, you know, entity, and you try to run this country and you putting unqualified, incompetent people at the helm. What can go right? You know,
yeah.
There's so much. It's like putting somebody who knows how to drive a Cessna in the cockpit of a 747. What's going to happen? You know, if you get it off the ground, you damn sure gonna crash it. You know, so that's America at this point. He's got a bunch of incompetent people at the helm of a very complicated, sophisticated entity, the United States of America. Very powerful. They have access to all kinds of diabolical weapons. You know, so that's where America is. America. You know, in Islam, in the Quran, it talks about that every country, Allah gives every nation a period, you know, a period to exist. And nothing can speed up that. Nothing can speed up that, nothing can speed up that process, the destruction of a country. Allah works on his own time. But when the time for a nation to end comes, nothing will stop it. Nothing will save it. Once that time runs out, nothing will save it. And one of the descriptions, things in the Hadith is like a string of pearls. You know, if you break that string of pearls, the pearls run off. One thing after another. One pearl after one. So we see one calamity, one thing after another, non-stop, like those pearls. Just visualize that string of pearls, you know.
Goes back to how do we deal with, back to your point of, in closing, irreconcilable differences?
There's so many, you know. There's no reason, there's no rhyme, there's no, you know, up is down, down is up. How do you reason? There's no reason. There's no grounds for reason. I mean, anytime we're in a period where you know, the woman, Supreme Court judge, she was asked in the hearing, "What is a woman?" She wouldn't answer that question. She wouldn't say. I ain't gonna say she couldn't say. She wouldn't say a woman is an adult female human being. She wouldn't say that. That's the time we live in. What is a man? You can't answer those questions definitively. What? You can't say what a woman is? You can't say what a man is? you know. So that's the time, after all this time, after all the human history, you know, what's that saying that if you put 100 transgender women on an island, deserted island, with 10 men, and you go away for 100 years, you come back and you find the skeletal remains of 110 men. But if you put 100 women on an island with 10 men, you go away for 100 years, you come back to a thriving community. So that's where we're at, you know.
Thank you, Brother Nicholas. To be continued. Radio Raheem reporting from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, as we do, sharing this knowledge.